From the Windows, Doors, and More Studios, your one-stop shop for all your kitchen and bath needs. The Pat Miller Program. Whoa, 92.3 FM and 1190 AM. Depend on it.
Hi, welcome in. It is Saturday. Glad you guys are here. Just lots going on in the news, but nothing has sucked the air out of the news, much like the debate that we just saw on Thursday evening. It was really something to behold. And so we're going to talk about it. We'll probably talk about it a lot today. Philip Boigman from Real Clear Politics. He'll be with us in the second half hour of this hour, and we will talk to him on what it was like because he was there at the room, outside the room, which wasn't even really in the same building as the debate, but the press room was all abuzz, I'm sure, and we'll find out from him what was said. Let me do a few other things first. Let me go through some other quotes that I had for today about Joe Biden, totally apart from the debate. And let's talk a bit for what it is that people are saying. And these are all people from the president's own party. Nancy Pelosi, Congresswoman, California, former Speaker of the House. Why is she still there? I remember when the Democrats lost control and she was no longer the Speaker of the House and she made the statement, well, I'll soon be out of here. Why is she hanging around? Because she thought the Democrats would regain control of the House this coming election. And she would then, of course, be renamed as Speaker of the House. Well, if she thought that the Democrats had every chance in hand and the Republicans had no chance at all for keeping and maybe increasing their majority in the House of Representatives, if Nancy paid any attention at all to the debate the other night, she had a little bit of a comeuppance, if you would. Here's Nancy Pelosi's quote. Are you ready? Joe Biden is leading the world in reducing inflation. Well, how is he doing that? The only way I think he could be doing that is if he is so creating more inflation here that it cuts down on the costs of goods and services elsewhere in the world. That's the only way. And I don't think that's what she's talking about, because even if that were a possibility, I don't think she has the brain matter to figure out what that is and what that would look like. Michael Tyler, crime went up under Donald Trump's presidency. Crime is down under Joe Biden's presidency. Donald Trump doesn't care about crime. He doesn't care about border security. Okay, before we walk this through, can I just say this in a nutshell, Mr. Tyler? Shut up. You obviously have no clue. Okay, the guy that was putting up the wall to secure our border was putting it up. The guy that instituted the stay in Mexico principle. All of that was torn down. In fact, the wall stopped within an hour after Joe Biden becoming president because it was one of the first executive orders that he signed. So you're telling me that Trump doesn't care about crime and he doesn't care about the border. You people are so ensconced with the idea that you have to keep lifting Joe Biden up and up and up. You've kind of lost all signal here with reality, because when you say this stuff, it's like you're trying to hold his hands up and keeping him in the forefront of everything relative to what's going on in this country. I don't know that is how that's going to work. I definitely don't think after this week's debate that's how it's going to work. T.J. Ducklo is the campaign press secretary for Joe Biden. This is a president who has gotten more done in his first term than any president in modern history. If I would have written that for him, I would not even be able to believe that he would have said something like this in public at all. I can't believe that it's something that he would have said, yeah, this is what we're doing here, and this is what I believe. It can't be what you believe. It can't. It absolutely cannot be what you believe. And then he went on and he said, Trump is an existential, urgent threat to our democracy. He promises to rule as a dictator on day one. Well, let me just say this. The last time Donald Trump was president 4 years ago, if you remember, Mr. Ducklo, the dictators of this world, Putin, the leader of Beijing and the leader of North Korea, they were all in a standstill. They've done all their major advances including up to flying balloons over our country, since Biden became president. Why? They don't respect him, and they don't fear him. More coming up straight ahead. Glad you're with us on this Saturday, here with Pat Miller on WOWO 92.3 FM and 1190 AM.
This is the Pat Miller Program on WOWO 92.3 FM and 1190 AM and on the WOWO app.
Hey, welcome back on this Saturday. So very, very glad that you're with us. And I just trust you're going to have a fabulous weekend with your family, weather aside. But just try to enjoy the day. Hug and love those around you. And I'm going to be trying to do the very same. This is by Charles Cook from Fox. You see him a lot on Fox Business. Smart guy. Charles Cook is a smart guy. He said, if I'm understanding correctly, the overarching message of the last 2 weeks has been that Donald Trump is set to become a dictator if he wins in November. Now, that's what we just heard by Ducklow before the break, that Donald Trump is expected to become a dictator if he wins in November. But that, in spite of this, it's just awful that the Supreme Court won't let the executive branch run its own trials or impose criminal penalties without Congress. And it's just great that the executive branch remains able to strip constitutional rights without due process and bully Facebook into moderating as it sees fit. In other words, there's an awful lot going on right now with the current administration where things are being done, and they seem to be done in a dictatorial manner, and yet it is in fact the fault of the president because he is being hamstrung and Donald Trump wants to become the dictator. It's already being done, and it's not being done very well. That's all I'm saying about that. That's the sum total of it. You're saying that Donald Trump will do what it is that Joe Biden is already doing. Let's slide to Gavin Newsom, shall we? Gavin Newsom said, for conservatives and delusional California bashers, their success depends on our failure. They want to impeach the very things that have made us successful as a tactic to turn America toward a darker future. Okay, what in California is a positive thing? Are you talking about drag queens in schools? Are you talking about fires and dung all over San Francisco? San Francisco used to be such a glorious, beautiful city. I wouldn't go there now. I would not go there now. If Kim and I could go anywhere in the country, hey, we'll fly you anywhere. You can have 2 nights at a 5-star hotel, have dinner at the 3 best restaurants in town. Where do you want to go? Bottom of my list is San Francisco, because they have taken the beauty of what it was and they've impeached it. He says, a tactic to turn America toward a darker future. He said, Gavin Newsom, they do so in the name of liberty and freedom. They want us to roll back social progress, social justice, racial justice, economic justice, clean air, clean water, and basic fundamental fairness. Well, okay, let's look at those. Social progress, where is that? Social progress, if what it is that you're pushing for in society is outside of the realm of the norm. If you're trying to push 2-parent homes, dad in the home, that dad is the leader of the home, that mom is leader number 2, that everybody's pulling in the same direction. There's no fear of God. If there's no respect for him, they at least do not fear him, that the kids can go to school and they can achieve because they're in schools that care more about their achievement than anything else. Social justice. Okay, really? I mean, that's where you're at? Racial justice. Economic justice. Let's give the new minimum wage to everybody, $20 an hour. Well, let's just do this, Mr. Newsom. Let's make it a really great state. Make it $50 an hour. You've already caused unemployment at the rate of about 8,000 jobs already this year, and you've got businesses declining or closing or leaving your state. Well, let's just ramp it up. Let's go to $50 an hour, and let's wipe it all out. Let's just do it. Don't forget, within a stone's throw of your Capitol building there in Sacramento, you actually have people involved in racial trade of young girls and sexual trade of young girls and causing them to serve as sex slaves. That doesn't seem to bother you. we're not doing anything about it. He said that would cleave America from the principles and freedom and the rule of law, and in the process, throw our economy and, in many respects, our society, as we've known it, into chaos. Leave your office, walk out to the street, and look around, Mr. Newsom. It's already there. Chaos is at home in Sacramento. More coming up straight ahead. Pat Miller with you here on WOBO 92.3 FM and 1190 AM. And we're back. After this segment, we'll have another quick break, and then Philip Wegman from Real Clear Politics will be with us. He is normally inside the Beltway as Real Clear Politics expert at the White House, but he, in fact, right now is still in Atlanta, finishing up after everything for the debate down there. It'll be really interesting. He was inside the spin room last night after everything, or 2 nights ago, after everything that occurred after the debate, and I'd like to get his take on what's happened there. Again, in the last segment, we talked a little bit about Gavin Newsom, who is trying. Gavin Newsom's in a tough spot. He's trying to make himself the heir apparent to the Democratic throne. So if and when Joe Biden is asked or made to leave the seat, and after the performance this week in the debate, that's probably more a reality now than ever before. But he has to do it in a way that it doesn't look like he's going after his head. It's got to be done in a way that it looks like he's being a good, sweet, loving little boy, and he's not going to cause a problem. He said, look, they're coming after us in California in the name of liberty and freedom. Well, yeah, because you're not offering liberty and freedom. Those are the two reasons. The Democrat Party right now, the things that they're cleaving to, because he says, here's the things, they would cleave America from the principles of freedom and the rule of law. That is not true. In fact, one person I read this morning, as I was having my morning oatmeal, if you must know, said kids would be better served to learn the 10 Commandments in school than about 10 different genders. And I don't even think we're limited to 10 anymore. I forget how many different letters there are now in the LGBTQ, EIEIO, and if you offend anybody, if you say the he when it should be she, or you say Zen when it should be them, there's no way. You can't get it right. You cannot get it right. It's just asinine. Biden's debate presence confirmed that Robert Hur, the special counsel who investigated the president's handling of classified documents, was, if anything, pulling punches when he wrote that Biden was, quote, a sympathetic, well-meaning elder man with a poor memory. No, here's what I believe, and I do believe this. As much evil as was in Joe Biden, and it might remain, I think the problem why he comes across so strong and so mad and so mean sometimes is I think that Joe Biden is losing it, and he knows he's losing it. Have you ever been around somebody at the onset of Alzheimer's, or when they start to have massive gaps in their memory? Have you noticed that? And when that occurs, it's like they start snapping at everybody because they can't stand it that they can't control what's going on with their bodies now. It's a real problem. It's a real difficulty, but it's real. It's real. He said, he wrote that Biden is a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. I don't think that. Look, I don't think Hur pulled punches against the president because he's this sympathetic old guy. I think he pulled punches because he was sitting in front of a president of the United States and realizing he was losing it, absolutely losing it. Tom Cotton, one of my favorite guys on the planet. Tom Cotton, Republican senator from the state of Arkansas, said it's deeply alarming that Joe Biden needs to be secluded for 7 days so he can speak coherently for 90 minutes. Well, not only that, Senator Cotton, I agree with you, but not only that, it didn't work. From the time he came on stage, you could barely hear it because his own personal mic wasn't on yet, but he came on stage kind of doing that shuffle walk that he does when he entered from the right and came to his podium. and was basically at a loss, at an absolute loss. He was mumbling something toward the commentators, didn't know what he was saying. He kind of pointed to his podium when he got close, like, is this where I'm supposed to go? The guy was lost and remained lost for the next 90-plus minutes. It didn't get better. Some say, well, it didn't get worse. Well, I'm not sure. It absolutely didn't get worse. Let's do this. Let me step away for a minute to a thought other than the debate. If you don't like what's happening in Gaza, it is your right to protest. I don't care what college campus you're on. It is your right to protest. That's not a problem. But your protest is of a policy. You don't protest a people. You don't bum rush a Jewish neighborhood and run up on a synagogue. That's not protesting a policy. That's protesting a people. Politics can be complicated. Geopolitics can be really complicated. How you treat your neighbors, how you treat people in your community is not complicated. Haven't seen any Jewish people running up on mosques with Israeli flags lately. Have you? I'm not a Jew. I don't apologize for Jews. I am a Jewish apologist in that I respect them as people, and I think we should too. Again, they're our greatest ally in all the Middle East. Coming up, Philip Oigman.
This is the Pat Miller Program on WOWO 92.3 FM and 1190 AM and at WOWO.com.
Hey, welcome back on this Saturday. The whole program today, basically all 2 hours being eaten up with the whole idea of what it was that we heard a couple of nights ago at the first presidential debate. And who better to ask than the guy who is around the president more than you and me put together. He's the White House correspondent for Real Clear Politics, Philip Oigman. Philip, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me, Pat.
Always glad to have you. So now, somebody told me that they were watching one of the follow-up interviews, back in the press room in the melee that they call the room there after the debates, and they said they actually saw you in the background. So you were there.
Yeah, I was in that crush of humanity as every reporter in the spin room sprinted and then pushed against one another to try and get as humanly close to California Governor Gavin Newsom as possible, because this race has completely shifted, Pat. I know that previously we have talked about some of the speculation about Democrats replacing President Biden at the top of the ticket. I still think that is unlikely because Democrats don't have the political machinery in place to replace him at the convention, and because that would be a awfully big push to try and get him to step aside. But I'll tell you this. Last night, that was the question of every single reporter in that room. The Band-Aid has been ripped off, and Democrats are openly freaking out about the age and mental acuity of the president himself. This is no longer something that is being whispered quietly. Instead, this is a 5 o'clock fire alarm, and that's why every reporter at the end of that debate wanted to know if Gavin Newsom was willing to step in and be the Democratic standard bearer. I have never, in my decade of covering politics, seen an entire party flip so quickly on their nominee.
Yeah, and here's my thought. I think, starting last night, because I saw a lot of what you saw. I mean, I listened to the debate, and then I listened to a lot of the brouhaha after for about 90 minutes, 2 hours. Here's the problem. These media people are up against. They were part of the group holding him up, reinforcing him. Not to the extent that Joe Biden has, but they were definitely involved in the propaganda of, well, there's nothing wrong with this president. He's the guy, and boy, he's good, and he's better on his worst day than Trump was on his best, and yada 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 yada. I mean, that there were some that were starting those comments online from the room where you were after the debate, before the debate was over. I mean, they could not wait to start distancing themselves from Joe Biden.
Well, think about what we have heard from Democrats in the White House thus far. For the last 4 years, whenever you would ask a question about the president's age or mental acuity, his response would be, "Watch me." The idea being that he would demonstrate that he's up to the job.
Yeah.
And certainly he's gotten a lot done in Congress. But last night, the country did watch President Biden, and for 90 minutes, it was painful. At one point, he said that he was going to enact a total ban on something to do with illegal immigration. He never specified what that was, and that was opening for Donald Trump to say that Biden didn't understand what he was talking about and didn't even understand his last sentence. Beyond that, Biden made a claim about being endorsed by the Border Patrol Union. That is not true. Beyond that, President Biden said that no service members had died on his watch. That is not true. President Biden, at one point, he even said, after a long, rambling answer that was supposed to be in response to a question about the national debt, he said that he defeated Medicaid, that he beat Medicaid. It was hard to follow. He was mumbling and staggering throughout the night. And to your point, Pat, I think a lot of people who dismissed or looked the other way when there were some concerns about the president and his age, now their credibility is at risk.
Sure.
And I think that starts with the White House, and it starts with every reporter who didn't press the White House on this, and who sort of bought the spin that an 81-year-old president was not showing signs of slowing down, because he just did on national television.
Well, and were you back in the spin room during the speech?
So the way CNN had this set up, we were in an arena on Georgia Tech's campus, and we sat around in the bleachers, more or less, above that arena. After the debate, you had Republican surrogates come out, Democratic surrogates come out, and leave the room where the actual debate was occurring. I've got to tell you, one thing that I found interesting, Republicans were there immediately. Every Republican who wants to be vice president was spinning like the Tasmanian devil, talking about how great of a night it was for President Trump. The Biden team, they didn't come into the spin room until 30 minutes afterwards. And Governor Gavin Newsom, before the debate, he told me that he had gone to President Biden to ask him how he should deal with his nerves, because he was anxious watching the debate. But Newsom said that every moment there's been a test, President Biden has risen to the occasion. I've got to tell you, based off of what I'm hearing from Democrats like Ben Rhodes, who was in the Obama administration, David Axelrod, who was also in the Obama administration, Van Jones, half of the editorial page of the New York Times, they don't think that the president did well the other night.
Well, and here's the thing, because everybody's saying, well, okay, that's it, Trump's going to win now, blah, blah, blah. In my view, and I'm not trying to be a protagonist of all things evil and dark, but in my view, yeah, the election was very much colored by what happened last night. But this guy, if there's not something, if he doesn't resign, step down, have a medical emergency, a 25th Amendment action taken by his cabinet against him, if something doesn't happen, this is the guy who will still have his finger on the nuclear button until January the 20th of next year. That scares me more than just a little bit.
And think about what the White House told us in response to Special Counsel Hurd's report, when the special counsel said that he declined to bring charges against the president in the classified document case because Biden was a well-meaning, sympathetic old man with a poor memory. Mm-hmm. The administration responded by saying that was egregious and inappropriate. Then the White House went after the Wall Street Journal for reporting that in private, Biden showed signs of slipping. We heard from every Democrat, from Nancy Pelosi to Hakeem Jeffries, that this was a Republican smear. Not that long ago, you and I were discussing the White House's use of this new term, cheat fakes, to insinuate that some of these senior moments that Biden had on camera actually hadn't happened.
They were fabricated.
Well, the fact that so many bought that gaslighting, the fact that so many people bought that lie, and the press let the administration get away with not showing us the president more often, it only magnified the pain. It only exacerbated, the drama around the president's age on Thursday night. And yeah, I think to your point, he still has a Democratic Party with hundreds of millions of dollars that's ready to prosecute this case, that's ready to, fight to the hilt in November. But this is the most serious blow to Biden's reelection campaign, and it came at his own hands.
Yeah. In fact, I'll tell you what, Glenn Beck on the Blaze just said Joe Biden was handily defeated by Joe Biden. He ended up basically knocking himself out, and it's just. It would be funny if it wasn't so frightening.
You're not wrong about that. I've followed and I've covered Trump for some time now, and one of the questions that the Biden campaign put to me before the debate is, what kind of Trump are we going to get? Are we going to get the low energy local news version of Trump who's not out there? Are we going to get the high octane one that we see at rallies? What kind of Donald Trump are we going to see? Well, that was almost irrelevant because for most of the night, sure, Trump was there. He was an interlocutor. He got some zingers in, but the story was not the body blows that Trump landed. The story was the verbal face plant that the president himself made. And, I've got to tell you, I sound like a broken record, but the Democratic Party right now is freaking out. And these whispers about, his age, now that's out in the open. They can't explain it away.
Yeah.
Now this is a very, this is a very tangible thing. We saw for 90 minutes that President Biden is not the same man today that he was in 2020, and that's a fact.
Right. Yeah. You hear and you see sometimes, and I get them sent to me all the time, copies of speeches that he gave on the Senate floor back when he was the senator. He was a dynamic individual. He knew how to craft things. A lot of the stances that he took on the Senate floor are in diabolical and diametrically opposition to stances he takes now. But he was very in control. He's none of that now. When you get, have you seen the video of Jill Biden with the president after the debate in whatever their victory room was, and she's there on the stage with him, and she's sitting there and she goes, you were tremendous tonight. You were awesome. You answered every question, and then the whole time she's talking, look at him. He's looking at her kind of like, who are you? Why are we here? He didn't know what he was.
The way this debate was set up, CNN had mute buttons so that neither man could talk over the other.
Right.
And, that led to these split screens where when the other candidate was speaking, all the challenger could do was just sit there and listen, right? And so the enduring image of this debate, and Democrats, were besides themselves over this. It was that you would see Trump on the left smirking, and then you would see President Biden slack-jawed with his mouth open.
Yeah.
Looking out into the distance. And I'll tell you, the video that you're referring to with the First Lady and President Biden, I was shocked when I saw that at this victory party.
Yep.
Because suddenly it seemed that Biden had come alive. That was completely gone during the first debate. And, the White House spin that I found remarkable is that it leaked out of the Biden campaign that President Biden had a cold. Well, that leaked out halfway through the debate. They didn't say that at the beginning of the day to lessen expectations. It was almost as if it was a last-ditch excuse. And the White House confirmed that the president had a cold halfway through the debate. And then when we talked to Democrats who were spinning on behalf of the president after the debate, they were trying to explain away some of his poor performance based off of the fact that he was feeling poorly. But that dog's just not going to hunt. Because someday, Joe Biden will get over his cold. And if he's in, perfect health, and yet he gives a similar performance like the one that he gave on Thursday night, I think he could very well be cooked.
This first debate, was last night at the end of June, and so they have July, August, and half of September to get Biden ready for the September 10th debate. Or does that give them pretty ample time to come up with somebody else?
It would take years for them to be able to put a plan together to have him replaced. I think the only people who can get Joe Biden out of the way at this point are President Biden himself, the First Lady, and then a confluence of folks like former President Barack Obama, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. It would take a lot of people coming to him and then him finally agreeing to step aside. But central to the Biden ethos is he always feels like an underdog, and for good reason. In 2020 he was dismissed as a dead man walking, and then he crashed his own funeral in South Carolina, won that primary, and won the nomination and then the presidency. He survived the red wave in 2022, but it feels like almost as if circumstances caught up with him now, and I don't know what he could do to improve, because he took more than a week off at Camp David and at his home in Delaware to prepare for this thing. If Biden somehow turns this around and has a strong performance at that September debate, and if he was to win a second term, this would be the greatest political comeback in modern American history.
Yeah. Do you think that's a possibility? I mean, because this is the guy who a few weeks ago is over at the G7. He obviously didn't know where he was. He goes wandering off the stage, out into the little woodlands there next to them, and the Prime Minister of Italy has to go get him, and bring him back. No, we're back here and we're doing this, and he didn't know where he was. I don't know that in 2.5 months or 2.5 years they could make any cognitive difference in Joe Biden.
He was as prepared as he was ever going to be last night. And even when he was delivering canned lines and clearly relying on prepared material that he had practiced, he was not at his best. I want to be fair, and I want to be as charitable as I can, certainly to the president. But I don't know if he would have enough time to prepare for a second debate to, improve on his performance. This was catastrophic. I mean, Democrats are blowing up my phone right now currently with their fears.
Is that right?
Yeah, there's fears that this is too late. I mean, the expectation is that Democrats have lost the House and the Senate already, and there's very little faith in the president's ability to beat Donald Trump. But that said, while they don't have a lot of faith in the current president, they know that the Democratic base is, petrified of the possibility of a return of Donald Trump, and perhaps that is what will deliver the momentum they need to hold the White House.
Yeah. The whole thing with Gavin Newsom, I think if Gavin Newsom is the next obvious pick for anything, I too think he has to be careful to make sure that he doesn't come running in almost as if Biden is on the side of the road as a wounded animal that's been hit by a truck, and I'll save the day. I don't think he can come in as Mighty Mouse. I think there's got to be some delicacy in how it is that he deals with whatever he's going to deal with. I just don't know. I mean, Joe Biden, I think, is unable to be the president. That's my view, and that's not a political thing. And I consider myself this, and I don't mean this in some ostentatious standard, but as a patriot, it troubles me as an American that what was on that stage last night is what we've put forward to the world. I'm telling you, the leaders of North Korea, China, and Russia have got to be licking their chops. I mean, does this mean now China is going to move on their affiliated island nations there off their coast in the Pacific? Does this mean that Russia now says, okay, it's time we go full bore into Ukraine? I mean, does this give them all just a feeling that, hey, guys, if we're ever going to do it, we need to do it now. If Trump gets back in, we can't do this?
Joe Biden's performance last night made Donald Trump look statesmanlike in comparison. And I think just on a human level, if you've seen Joe Biden and his ability to identify with folks, his empathetic soul, his his ability to sort of operate previously, you can't help but your heart has to go out to the guy after last night's debate.
Yeah, it's sad, and seeing Jill and the way she led him again off the platform after he was done, and then, the way that she was his little cheerleader there in their post-debate meeting and all that, it makes me think that she's got another house on a beach that she wants to buy, and she needs him in office so they can get it, It's just there's something unseemly about it, and the fact that she's willing to trot him out again and again and again, just for whatever benefit, I guess it is, to their family or to her or to whatever. She ought to take the man home. She should take him home.
Republicans have pounced on this, right? And they've made hay while the sun shines on the Biden family. But you know who also has identified just how weird this dynamic is? Former President Barack Obama. That's not conspiratorial. It's in print. The former president has said that family dynamic is very weird, and I think he has a quote that I can't say because the FEC will fine you, but other folks have noticed this. The American people have now seen it in an hour and a half. They'll decide in November, but I think that there's going to be a lot of questioning of institutions who did not at least force the White House to answer on this front, who said that there's no issue here at all.
Last question, and we're talking to Philip Wegman from Real Clear Politics. Philip, CNN made a big deal, kind of because the Biden administration demanded it, the whole off-mic thing. When it's not your turn, your mic is turned off. And boy, that'll show Donald Trump. That'll keep him in his place. I think that actually helped Donald Trump to function within the parameters of what he was allowed, which, to your point, made him come off, I think, as a little bit more presidential last night.
Yeah, I think you're right. One of the things that Trump had to avoid is he had to avoid being gratuitous in his attacks on Biden, if that makes sense. He had to avoid reveling in the president's missteps. And I think that, his human nature normally would not allow him to show that kind of restraint.
Right.
But because the mics were muted, he didn't have much of a choice.
Right. Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. I think that's what they were up against. It's what they had to do. And it is what it is. Listen, Philip, we went a little long, but that's okay. You're my favorite guy. But very glad to have you. You're still in Atlanta right now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you leave to go back to D.C. when, today?
Hop on a flight here in just a bit.
Okay. Now, you're not in the back of Air Force One, correct?
No, not today.
Have you ever been back there?
No, I've done Air Force 2, but not Air Force 1.
Okay, well, no, a line just came through my mind. Never mind. But listen, Philip, as always, appreciate you, my friend, and we look forward to having you back with us next Saturday. Be safe, be good, and keep being strong. I appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. Take care.
More straight ahead right here on the Pat Miller Program, WOWO 92.3 FM and 1190 AM.
Podcasts by Federated Media.